Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos, with your hosts, John Fahey and Aaron Peter.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. We are a show about weirdos. My name is John Fahey. I am joined by a glistening baby under the sun, Mr.
I'm just a baby.
Aaron Peter.
Yeah! I'm sorry, I'm just a glistening baby.
Yeah, and then a handsome, rugged fellow by the name of
Matt Brousseau.
Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Ooh, rugged.
Hey, rugged.
Hey, John.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You look great.
We gotta, straight up, off the bat, we gotta ask listeners a favor. Guys, we could really use your help bumping our new episode of Bleak and Review, Matt's other podcast.
Yeah. We need to usurp a couple of these other, episodes out
These
there.
guys think they're big shots.
They're not. If you're a fan of the episode where we talk about the Spit Man of West London,
Yep.
well, the Spit Man and his fiver guy
Yeah.
make an appearance on Bleak and Review. Can you believe it?
You wouldn't believe it. Me and Aaron's pickup artist parody characters, Heath Barcelona and Randy Rigg. Once again, new video on YouTube.
Yeah. Just go to
Barcelona University, Vegas.
Go to YouTube and just type in Heath Barcelona.
With
Yeah.
a legend on it.
Huh?
With a legend.
Oh, yeah.
Brianna Banks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brianna Banks is in the episode, which is incredible. Plus, it's me and fucking Aaron at the AVNs, which is
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
Oh, it's great. I
It
mean,
was so funny.
come on. And then speaking of, also related on that episode is, on that Bleak and Review episode, we also play porn stars Max Load and Amber Alert.
Yes.
Which is
Very
so
stupid. If you like all the dumb shit on Profiles, this is me and Aaron getting really dumb on Matt and Kevin's great podcast, which is really, the podcast is really so good for getting comedians to be able to flex character muscles and work on that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever did a character thing was on that show. Mm-hmm. And now me and Aaron have done that stuff live on stage.
Yeah. People seem to be liking it.
Yeah. But guys,
Please Bleak
listen
and
to
Review.
it. Me and Aaron needed it for our egos big time. And it's really fun. It's really stupid. We have a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, if you're really into the P-Talk, I think every single character we did definitely...
Everything's stupid.
Everything's so dumb,
Yeah,
but
we also
do
did-
pepper in some funny, smart stuff. It's
Sure.
But it is mostly stupid.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb. It's smart dumb.
Yeah.
We also did two characters, two guys about to nut.
Yeah, and they were, try it out. Just go download it, try out Bleak and Review.
Yeah.
And subscribe.
Right.
Subscribe to us.
Yeah.
Mainly. But try out Bleak and Review. Check out the episode. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, it's a great podcast, and there's a lot of really funny characters on there. I haven't done enough to hype the whole Heath Barcelona second video yet. It's really stupid, really funny. Aaron did a whole lot of work with graphics and audio cues and a lot of stuff. You really did a fantastic job.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy. The next one's going to be,
beautiful.
I think the next one, I got a new camera.
Yeah.
And so the next one will look a lot better, and it'll sound a lot better. And I think we're ready to kick that thing into high gear. So if you want some more stupid bisexual, cocaine-addicted pickup artistry stuff, get ready for that, because that'll we'll shoot the next one soon.
Yeah, this one I've got a little profile for a very audio-centric audience. If you're at all a nerd about record producers and stuff like that, this guy just fascinated the living shit out of me. But first, Matt, you got a little something to bring to the program, don't you?
Oh, okay. We're gonna
Give
go
it to us, Matt.
Well, you were talking about music yesterday, and I had something, and this is something I fell into last night, really.
Nice.
So it's kind of fortuitous that you're talking music, and this one isn't. Well, we'll see what it is.
Try it out.
All right, we'll try it out.
Try it out.
All right.
Give us a deal, man.
So, my family has a lot of history with union stuff, and
Really?
Oh yeah. Like, my dad is a union organizer. He's a Teamster, but my mom,
I didn't know
dad,
that.
both Massachusetts Teachers Association, teachers unions reps, and all kinds of stuff like that. You know, when I was a kid, my dad would he'd drive me to go to play I'd have to like wake up at 6 a.m. from like age 6 until like high school. Yeah, and he'd have to drive me to go play hockey in like fucking New York. Wow, like 2 hours. And during that time, there's nothing to do when the radio cuts out, you know, or when it's repetitive. He puts his music on. And so he had this one album that was called "Don't Mourn, Organize."
Wow.
And it was all this music by this guy named Joe Hill.
Right.
And Joe Hill was basically became a union martyr.
Really?
Oh.
And that will tie in eventually. But right now we go to 1950.
Okay.
Saturday Evening Post. There's a 3-part series written by a guy named James Morton called The King of Thieves. Now in this 3-part series, James Morton, he says that he goes over his life. He says that he robbed trains and offices in over 40 states during his lifetime, starting in 1900 and ending, you know, by this point he's almost 60 years old.
What was this series released in?
Saturday Evening Post.
Okay.
You know, it was a periodical at the time.
That's a newspaper, John.
Cool.
Now, some things in this, it turns out some things in this story were not true, or they embellished, or glossed over. And one thing is certainly not true. This guy's name was not James Morton. This guy's name was also not F.C. Wheeler, James Framer, James Franklin, James Morton, James Martin, George Moore, George Lawrence Moore, Lawrence George Moore, George Lawrence, James Herbert Osberg. These were all names he used to cover up his real name, which was Magnus Olson. These were all names that were passed around through police offices and precincts.
Magnus Olson is such a cool name.
Right. Well, he was born in Norway in 1881. His family moved here when he was 3. They moved to Evanston, Illinois. And then when he was 10, both his parents had died. And they don't say how. But he moved in with an uncle, and then he became just like a shitty kid.
Yeah.
Became a tough. He started running with this gang. They called themselves Filipinos.
I think that's a whole like nationality of people. I don't know if that's just a gang.
We're the Filipinos.
Yeah.
That's great. And according to the local newspaper, they were known for burglary, larceny, and malicious mischief.
Those goddamn Filipinos! Oh!
And so he starts committing crimes around age 17, 18. And he's first arrested for armed robbery, and he served 16 months out of a possible 20 years.
Jeez.
Just, you know, good time. He's a good kid in jail.
Filipino privilege.
Yeah.
Now, he gets out a good time served, and 6 months later, he's backed in again for robbery. But they don't know who he is. He says he's someone else. He gives one of his aliases. And you know how it is back then. It takes a little while for the information to go back and forth.
Sure.
So in this time, they let him go, and he flees because he's in violation of his parole. He goes out west. He follows the harvest. At one point, one of his jobs was cleaning the sprouts off potatoes in someone's root cellar.
What a total jerk-off job! Get that shit off my spuds, you Magnus motherfucker!
You Filipino piece of shit!
You motherfucker, you!
These potatoes look like shit!
Guy's Asian.
He's Filipino. He's Norwegian.
This is a tough life, and he doesn't like it very much. He goes back to the Chicago area. They arrest him. They realize who he is. They arrest him for parole violation. They put him in jail. He gets out not too long after that, and he moves out west. He wants to go to Alaska, but he can't get past Seattle, so he starts going down the coast. He gets into California, and it's there he tries to rob a boxcar again, and he's arrested, spends 3.5 years in Folsom Prison.
Whoa.
And you know what happens there? They don't rehabilitate you. All he learned in there was the essentials of the stealing trade.
Right.
His roommate was a guy who taught him how to break safes. Mm-hmm. And so from there, you know what he did? That's it. As soon as he left, he started robbing boxcars up and down the West Coast.
Wow.
Now, 1907, they arrest him because he was just walking down the street and just beat up a stranger.
Jesus.
Obviously, he's got some issues.
Sure.
They let him go. 3 weeks later, he's arrested because he looks like a man who tried to rob a house and then killed the guy who owned it. But he just looked like him, so he didn't have any proof because that guy was dead.
Right.
Yeah.
So then he heads back to Chicago, spends a week there. During that time, he breaks into a house, steals a bunch of money orders, and tries to burn it down. They catch him because it turns out he just stole receipts. And he's at a bar just trying to turn in receipts.
Jesus Christ.
1908, he's arrested for robbing a boxcar in Reno. He gets 2.5 years there. During that time, he decides to write a false autobiography about how his farm life in the West is tough to try to get clemency or leniency.
Huh.
They don't really like it, so...
this book sucks.
That was
2 more
poorly
years.
written.
It's just a bunch of receipts.
In 1911, he's arrested for stealing furs and silks.
All right, now we're talking.
As he's leaving the building, the cop sees him. He runs up into the hotel nearby, jumps through a 2-story window, lands on a tin roof, falls through it, and lands right in front of the officer who is chasing him.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Damn, kismet.
Now, in 1913, he's arrested under suspicion of robbing a brothel.
What? Like of money?
Well, so his partner...
He just steals a bunch of prostitutes?
He took a whole brothel with him. He just wheeled it out of town.
He stuck all these hookers in a bag and left.
Give me the nut!
Well, what happened is his partner went there. His partner saw that there was a bunch of money. His partner tried to rob it, and then they arrested his partner. And then this guy shows up the next day under an alias, and he says, my name's Frank Wilson. I think a friend of mine might have left something here. And so he picks up a madam, and he goes into a room, and he tries to rob her. They call the cops again. He flees. Jesus. The next night, 2 fires are started in the building. And they're like, well, I can kind of guess who did this.
Right.
So they arrest him under suspicion of this, don't have any proof, and they let him go. Now, he's robbing cars in Elko, Nevada, and Ogden, Utah. And in between both of these cities is a place called Salt Lake. And on January 9th, 1914, this man named John Morrison, him and his son, they run a grocery business in Salt Lake. And for the second time in 4 months, they're in a shootout.
Jesus.
And John Morrison and his son are both killed. The first thing the police do is they arrest Frank Wilson.
Right.
F.C. Wilson, as he's calling himself at the time. He convinces the cops that he didn't do anything wrong, and by convince, they mean bribe. And he says, this is the only time in his life at this point he confesses to a crime. He says, oh, actually, I'm not guilty of this, but I did rob that boxcar in Elko. And so they ship him out to Elko, Nevada. And so what happens next is the cops are looking for someone to pin this on. They need to find someone who did this crime or looks like that. They arrest 10 other people. They don't feel like any of them did it. And then they hear about this one man who went to a doctor's office that night with a gunshot wound. And he's a Swedish man, tall, fits the description of Frank Wilson. And his name is Joseph Hillstrom, or Joe Hill. Now, Joe Hill is a musician, poet, International Workers of the World member, organizer. Big union guy, and they were not looked upon well by the cops and people in power.
Sure.
So they think he was once arrested for vagrancy.
Right. Standing around.
Yeah, hanging out.
Or organizing. So that night, he won't say. They say, Joe, how'd you get this wound? And he said, I won't say. He wasn't telling anybody.
Okay.
And they say, well, where were you that night? He says, I can't tell you. They say, well, you got to give us something here. He says, no, I can't do it. Now, it's revealed in the 2000s, a man is doing research on all this, and he discovers that Joe Hill was in love with this 20-year-old woman, and a friend of his was too. And his friend was married to her, and they divorced, and she fell in love with Joe. And Joe told her in a letter that he was shot by his friend over this woman.
Oh, fuck.
And in fact, Joe says to the cops, he says, my arms were up. That's where the bullet wound's from. And if they examined his coat, and they found that the bullet hole that went through his coat was actually 4 inches higher than it would have been, indicating his arms were up.
Wow.
Forensics.
Huh?
Science.
And so this whole story here, this whole Joe Hill thing, eventually he won't give up whatever happened during this time. And so most people think he's innocent of it. The cops don't believe it. President Wilson, at the time, he goes to the governor of Utah and he asks for him to be released or not executed.
Really?
The governor of Utah says no.
Wow.
Susan B. Anthony did No, who's the blind and deaf woman?
Helen Keller.
Helen Keller.
What did she say?
She also, I don't know how she got involved, but it's like, I don't know if we can trust you on this one, Hel.
Yeah.
So anyway, they execute him.
Whoa.
Firing squad.
Really?
Yeah. And the story is that they bring Joe out to get shot, and the guy running the guns, he says, ready, aim, and then Joe Hill says, fire. Go on and fire.
Wow.
You fucking motherfuckers. I fucked all your wives.
Try it out.
Spit on me, piss on me.
And the belief is that Joe wanted to become a martyr for his cause. He kind of believed that his union cause was bigger than him, and he figured he would go down for this.
But did he mention that during this whole
Yes.
He was espousing his union.
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't just about
he wasn't just hiding the
fuckery.
The fuckery.
He was hiding the union.
He kind of realized maybe this is how he makes his
Okay,
stunt.
got it.
And so he goes to death for it. And this became a rallying cry for the IWW and unions all over the place. His ashes were put into 30 bags and handed out and scattered across the land. And it became this big song. It was written about him. This poet wrote a version. He said, I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Says, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. And this became a huge song. Woody Guthrie did. Joan Baez sang it at Woodstock. Paul Robeson, Pete Seeger. And because I fell into it, I was looking at this Bob Dylan song, I Dreamed of St. Augustine, and it opens with I Dreamed of St. Augustine, alive as you or me. And he was clearly basing it on this Joe Hill song.
Yeah.
And so this career criminal just kind of skates through the land, causing ruckus, and accidentally helps create one of these great folk songs of all time.
That is wild.
By letting an innocent man get killed.
in his place.
Yeah.
Now, so what happened to Morton is he went to jail for the boxcar robbery. He became friends with the warden while he was in jail, became his personal driver. Then through that became friends with the governor of Utah, who then wrote a letter to the prison, and he got released early. And then in his 50s, he joined Al Capone's gang in Chicago. In 1929, he participated in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
No shit.
Where his car was used as the getaway vehicle.
Wow.
No shit.
Damn. Magnus. This is my son, Magnus.
A.K.A. Frank, A.K.A. John, A.K.A. How many names did he have?
At least 15, 20.
It was like as many as fucking Arbala, the porn actor.
Yeah.
Robert Baller.
Robert Bala.
Roger Bala.
Bob Bala. That's from the Ruggiero Deodato episode of the podcast. Go back and check that one out.
Here's my last footnote. Now, there were two men who killed James Morrison and his son. And one of them was a short man with a scar on his face. He was seen around the area before the crime happened. And no one knew who he was, but he was widely suspected to be this guy, Thomas Waite, who was found to be lurking around with Morton.
Being a vagrant.
Yes, in effect. And so he went to jail for the boxcar thing. He got out in 1915. The first night he gets out, he goes and he sleeps at this boarding house in Reno where he has this terrible nightmare. He's fighting an imaginary person. He rolls off the bed, falls on the ground, hits his face onto a porcelain spittoon, where he cracks his head open, cuts his throat open, and goes...
Jesus Christ!
Goes to the hospital, and the next day the newspaper headline reads, Man with Nightmare Fights Furniture.
Oh, that's
rich.
good stuff.
That is rich.
I like that a lot. People were mean back then, huh?
Well, shame keeps you honest.
Yeah. I think about that all the time, like no joke. I think just please don't let me die like an asshole. Like I just don't want to die. I think about that all the time, like the one guy that dies on the Disney ride, like don't ever let me be that. I don't because I laugh so hard at it when I hear about it. I'm like, you are an idiot, you know? But it's so funny to me.
Yeah. You're a maniac.
That's so funny to me. Like, if
you laughed at the scene in Boogie Nights where they shot up a donut shop. Yeah, it's hilarious.
But dying in a dumb way, so funny.
Oh, it's the best.
So funny.
Dumb deaths? Come on.
So that's so wait. So this guy had recorded stuff before his death.
He was a writer. He played music, but he was
okay.
a writer and a poet, and he traveled around kind of just being like a Woody Guthrie type before Woody Guthrie.
Okay, so these were kind of like songs like redone by other artists that your dad would be listening to.
Right, and so it became this whole Joe Hill album. He had this other song called Mr. Block. So Mr. Block, you were born by mistake. You take the cake, you make me ache. Tie a block around your neck and go jump in the lake. And Mr. Block is the guy who breaks strikers.
Right.
Yeah. Blockbuster.
That was the only job Carl Panzram had that he did well at was strike breaking.
Yeah.
It takes a certain kind.
And he got the shit kicked out of him. He got totally jumped. So funny. That's good stuff, Matt.
It's it feels like a very American tale.
Yeah, I didn't know you had this huge
Yeah.
union background.
Yeah,
That's very fascinating to me. It's that's pure Americana right there. No unions now.
Oh no, fuck them, right?
Yeah. That's my dad had
Unless you're prisons guard union, then you have tons of power.
Right,
Yeah.
Cops Union.
Yeah.
That was my dad's big beef with Reagan. He was like, it destroyed the unions forever. Like, they were already on the ropes.
Yeah.
But then after that, he was just very obviously siding with no. And that was that.
Yep.
And there's no unions now.
No, there's teachers unions, and then there's like police.
No, yeah, there's cops, yeah, whatever. But like, you know what I mean? Like,
It's a lot of government employee unions.
yeah.
There's not a lot of private unions. The Teamsters are still around, but
Right. But it's like, people talk about like income inequality and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, you got no fucking balls.
no bargaining power.
Yeah.
My grandma worked for the Teamsters she retired.
Really?
She retired working for the Teamsters.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
How'd she get in there?
Oh, she whacked the guy.
Nice.
And she did like some like bookkeeping type of stuff, I think.
I didn't know I was doing the show with a bunch of fucking communists here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my dad was a long-haul truck driver.
Really?
Oh, very nice.
That was his college gig.
No shit.
They don't get paid that much anymore.
No.
Straight up Teamster, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Long haul trucking used to be very, very nice. And the trucks,
Oh, hell
awesome.
yeah.
Sleeper cabs in the back and all that. Very cool gig. But then they don't pay you anymore. We're gonna get a little political here, listeners. They don't pay you anymore as diesel prices went up and shoot up. They never like increased the prices or the pay.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So they
Yeah, well,
just
and
do a lot of speed to stay up.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, the job is also now probably, they think, going to be the first robotic thing.
Yeah.
So it'll just be gone. So even, like, it's not a great job, but it won't be a job at all. They're saying, like, pretty soon.
Now you get killed by a robot.
Yeah.
A robot can drive you off the road.
Yeah, now the robot's doing speed.
Robot glory holes on the road. Yeah, actually, they just had the first automated truck just made its first cross-country journey, like this week.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Caterpillar beat Tesla to the punch.
Jesus.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it was Cat. I think it was Cat. Yeah.
All right, guys. I want to tell you a little bit about a guy. This story is super, super fascinating to me. This guy just became kind of just an audio maniac. He was born in 1929. His name is Robert George Meek. Goes by Joe. Huh?
Duh. What? Huh?
So he's out like the countryside of England, whatever. His mom wanted a daughter, but she got Joe.
Oh, great. That usually turns out so well.
So she put him in dresses till age 4.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where's his dad?
I don't know, but the other boys,
What the fuck?
the other boys were outdoor boys, and Joe would always be in the shed playing with electronics.
In his dress.
Well, I mean, like, no wonder you put him in dresses. You know what I'm saying? They're like, he was an indoor. It's like, oh, well,
No, he didn't want to
was he
go
gonna
outside.
go outside, frolic in his dress?
Yeah, he
Like,
was probably trying to make his own electric chair to kill himself.
right, but I mean, he starts just fucking around with electronics. Like, from a very early age, he becomes extremely involved, just obsessed with it. And he's fucking around to the extent that he's manipulating audio stuff with tape stuff, and this is just stuff that he's found, begged for, borrowed, whatever. He's just fucking around with stuff. And they said, like, he had maybe the first incarnation of a television in his area of England at the time.
No shit. And so,
Yeah.
he was born in what?
1929.
So he's way ahead of the curve as a 10-year-old?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's barely electronics.
It's just some like weird world you can dive into.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
sure.
So he's music, recording all that stuff, and then like he's like playing stuff backwards. He's doing all that weird shit, and it's just like he's trying it out. You know what I mean? He's like doing all kinds of fucked up weird stuff, and being like, oh, when I do this, this happens, and it's just all pure experimentation. He grows up. He does national service in the RAF, and he does radar stuff.
That's the Royal Air Force.
Yeah,
for
the Royal Air
American
Force.
listeners.
Right. And so he gets involved with radar stuff, which pushes him more into audio shit. And also he's really into space stuff. You know. He gets a job at a studio. And
Post-war.
Post
World War II.
Right. And he's messing with stuff without telling people.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, like he'll distort the sound on the piano, like on jazz records and stuff like that, but then the record would become a hit. So then, like, after that, he'd be like, yo, I did this, this, and this that you didn't know about, and that sounds fucking dope. Because people weren't trying to fuck around with
They were
shit.
not trying it out.
Right.
They were not trying it out. Because the thing was, like these guys that would record you, they used to wear fucking like white lab coats, and the whole thing would be about getting it as the clarity.
Yeah, we're in the lab.
Yeah, no, but keep the sound as pure as you can. And he was like, no. What if it sounds like? So this guy really was the one that created the idea of using the recording studio as an instrument itself. Nobody was doing that before.
Right. Playing with the acoustics.
Right. So he was he started this label. And it was, independent. He was outside the big studio system, which was, a massive, huge thing. And he was selling some records, but then he found he could only go to independent pressing plants to get that record out, and they couldn't keep up with the demand. So he was like kind of seeing what it was like doing things from an independent perspective of the major label system.
Okay.
Because they have all the big plants at their disposal.
And they're on contract that they can't do independent.
Right. So he ends up starting a production place in a 3-story flat, right? And so he's got like neighbors and stuff like that. But this is the first time that there's been a recording studio outside of the studio system that you can go to, right? You can just show up. If you got money, you can pay, and he's doing stuff, right? That had never happened before. He gets bankrolled by a toy importer, Major Wilfred Alonzo Banks. Toy importer. Major Wilfred Alonzo Banks.
Yes.
That's the most insane series of words. Ridiculous. It's called RGM Sound Limited, right? It's later changed to Meeksville Sound because his name started getting around. And he's just trying out really weird shit. He started with a sound that was kind of like he was trying to do spacey, like weird type shit, right? This song called Johnny Remember Me. Aaron, if you could play that for us.
Sure.
And you can hear how like he gets into some of the spacey sounds. How eerie this is.
When the mists are rising and the rain is falling and the wind is blowing cold across the moor, I hear the voice of my darling.
So this song,
the girl I love and lost to you.
This song was known as a death ditty because this song was written by a psychic about a guy that died, right? And Joe Meek himself was very into the occult.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. This is a very good follow-up to Alistair.
Yeah.
He believed he was communicating via Ouija board with Buddy Holly, who had died.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What year was that song out?
This song came out in...
It sounds like it could be a song from like the 70s.
Oh, no.
Earlier.
No, this is very early 60s.
Right, which is...
It's ahead of its...
It is. That's the thing, is that this guy really kind of started that whole 60s sound and really never got credit for it at all.
It sounds like something in a Tarantino movie.
Right.
Yeah, this is 1961. Okay, so that came out in 1961, but it's a death ditty, right? Which was a little bit of a bi-Atlantic thing that was going on where it would be these dark songs and you hear like all that background wailing and shit like that. That song was banned by the BBC.
Oh, what? Because it was too macabre?
Yeah, all those death ditties, they were like, this is creepy and weird and we don't like it, and it's branching into that occult stuff. That
meanwhile, they're all sacrificing kids and shit in their mansions.
Too close to home.
Yeah.
Right. It's an old British True Detective episode.
Yes, try it out.
Bugger a fellow and chop his head off. But so that song becomes number one. That's the first time an independent producer ever had a number one hit.
No shit.
That never ever happened before.
Wow, that was a number one song.
That was a number one hit. Yeah. And so he's upfront about talking to the press. He tells them about, I talked to Buddy Holly.
I wrote it off a Ouija board.
Yeah. No. There was another psychic that actually wrote the song, but it's just that Joe Meek was open to that shit, you know. But he was so involved with the studio as the instrument that he wasn't really a talent guy, right? And he would go out and find like pretty boys and be like, I'm gonna make you a star, and then they would suck. But he was doing stuff like he was the first one to push like the drums to the front of the mix, which is today now a big favorite of Steve Albini's sound. Is like vocals in the back, drums up front, you know, like it just like having like the recording have like more balls and shit like that. But back then that was way ahead of its time. But also he was trying to drum out these guys' shitty vocals because they weren't stars or singers. They were dudes he was trying to fuck.
Nothing changes in music.
Right, yeah. He was just like, you're going to be a star or whatever. So he's got this guy around Bert Hines, okay? Bert Hines is a German Brit.
It's a Bert Hines.
And he's like, you know, cultivating a fucking, like a look for him. He's telling him to peroxide, shit his hair.
Put on this dress I used to wear as a kid.
Right. And he's coming on to Hines all the time, and Hines is like, I don't want to fucking do that. I just want to, you know, be a successful artist or whatever. And he's like, well, I want to fuck you.
How bad do you want to be a successful artist?
And so he's like, I used to tell him to fuck off, and they have like some dispute. It goes on and on. He keeps kind of hassling him and stuff like that. And Bert Hines ends up leaves a shotgun behind in their little dispute because they were kind of cohabitating. But he puts out a lot of shitty records, and the public is just like, this guy's a jerk off, and you know it sucks. This guy's got to go, and he's still in the studio. He's fucking around with all kinds of crazy shit to make wacky sounds that if you manipulated it, you would never know where the original sound came from, like blowing bubbles in a straw and hearing the bubbles come up. You know what I'm saying? Like shit like that, or flushing the toilet, like all kinds of super homemade weird shit to get these crazy ass sounds after fucking with them. He was very big into compression. Nobody had really fucked around with that before. He was also the first person to do the whole thing of Phil Spector and those guys were all about the wall of sound.
Can you explain that for the audience?
The wall
what
of
exactly
sound
wall
is
of sound
like
was? 'Cause it was revolutionary.
It was.
It allowed for music to sound good over AM radio.
Right, but it's everybody recorded back then. Every instrument in the room, everybody doing everything at the same time. Phil Spector kind of made it bigger with, holy shit, here's a fucking band and an orchestra and a band, and it's a whole huge sound. Joe Meek was exactly the opposite of that. He was like, separate everything. And that really became the standard for recording that we still have today.
Right.
Nobody's fucking
individual
doing all that shit at the same time. Yeah, because it's all bouncing off each other. It's all fucked up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and so that gets to this day changes everything, and it gives you all kinds of like weird things. Like I wanted to use an example with if you could play the first Joy Division clip. This is Joy Division live to hear what they sounded like as a band, which a lot of people don't understand. They were such a raucous live band.
Give me my steel reserve.
All right, so this is the recorded version that we're going to play next by Martin Hannett, who really embraced kind of the Joe Meek style of using space to get in between everything. just sounds like such a bigger landscape. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It really fills up the room.
Yeah.
Everything's crisp.
Right. So nobody was doing that before. Everybody was doing this thing. And, like, it's kind of a thing that you can hear even now. And so that goes on in the recording industry to go all the way down to, like, when Motley Crue was recording drum tracks, they recorded every single drum separately to just hyper-produce everything. Because imagine you take every single thing and then you throw some reverb on it, which, by the way, reverb was all from Joe Meek.
No shit.
That all this shit came from him, this whole thing about having it sound spacey. He was the first one to come up with a concept album. It was a space opera called I Hear a New World.
Huh.
And it was like every track was going to have like a template of like, or like a kind of like every track had like a background story. It's like, now we're on a part of the moon where the gravitational thing leaves all the rocks floating 3 feet above the surface. And like he painted these pictures. So he has a band come in and he records all this weird space stuff over it. But anyway, I mean, basically, he's doing some really far out there stuff, some really, really fucking weird stuff. And he's in a 3-story flat doing this. He's got a landlady, like, hitting the fucking broom.
He mics her up.
On the roof, right? And so what he would do is to get back at the landlady, he would take a speaker outside and leave it in the hallway. Just to be like, do you want to see how bad this is? Like, I could make this really fucked up. But this Space Age album, I Hear a New World, Joe Meek and the Blue Men, right? It never comes out. All he can afford to put out because of label shit is an EP with 4 other songs. It sells 99 copies. It was like revolutionary for the time. This is before 2001 and stuff. Like, this is like, this guy was tapping into like really crazy stuff.
Yeah, we hadn't gone to the moon.
He was doing like really insane stuff. He was just doing really far out there stuff. But in the meantime, people are like understanding, oh my God, this guy is really onto some really crazy, weird stuff. He's got Brian Epstein, the manager of the Beatles, comes to him, plays him a demo. He tells him they're going nowhere. Forget it. Never mind. Skip it. Then this band comes in. He's like, oh, these guys are cool. Their singer starts singing in the studio. Joe Meek runs into the booth where the guy is singing with 2 hands in each of his ears, screaming until the guy leaves. That was Rod Stewart. He throws out David Bowie another time. Right?
Oh, Ziggy Stardust himself.
Yeah, he's fucking up everything, right? He finds Tom Jones. He starts doing stuff with Tom Jones and a band. It was called like Tom Scott and the Senators. Everybody's name sucked back then. Yeah. It was like the Conrads. What? Who cares?
The
Conrads. Like, no joke. That's one of the bands like in this whole like menagerie. But Tom Scott and the Senators? Get the fuck out of here. Humiliating. You know what I mean? So then he puts out a hit. It's by the Tornadoes. It sells 5 million copies. And this will show you kind of some of the Space Age stuff he was doing with the sound of the day.
Yo, this is dope.
Right?
5 million copies, huh?
Yeah. For the time, dude. I mean,
that's a lot of copies.
We're talking like 62. This is what's playing when I go to the Teak.
Yeah.
Isn't that so dope?
Yeah.
All right, so
very weird.
He gets sued for copyright infringement for this song, right? And he's like, fuck. So he's not getting any royalties from his fucking mega hit, right?
For who sued him? For what?
It's like a French artist is saying this is ripped off of this song. Eventually, it would come out that they were like, no, they lost the suit, right? But in the meantime, he's fucking pissed, right? He's super, super pissed. And he starts getting crazy in the studio. He becomes famous for throwing things at people in the studio, right? One time, the Tornadoes had a drummer, and he threw a brand new tape deck at him, like a massive machine. And another drummer wasn't like listening to him one time, and he comes in with the shotgun Left Behind by Bert Hines. Bert Hines used to get beans thrown at him, by the way, because of Heinz beans on stage because he couldn't sing.
Eat the beans, pretty boy.
It's just like people were like, "Who? This guy's not cool. Fuck this." So let's throw beans at him.
Long history of throwing produce. At performers.
But so he comes in with Bert Hines' shotgun and shoves it in the face of this drummer.
Dude, Phil Spector ripped off everything from this dude.
One time, Phil Spector called him up like innocent phone call, and Joe Meek started screaming at him like, "Oh, you're stealing shit from me." But Phil Spector used to fucking do this shit. He used to tie people up.
Yeah, and put guns in their mouth.
Yeah, he did it to John Lennon. He during End of the Century recordings, he did it to the Ramones. Joey was like, "What do you got to drink?" You know? And so anyway, that drummer was Mitch Mitchell, who ended up drumming for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Like, this guy he hated people that were talented. You know what I mean? Like, it was ridiculous.
Oh, the Ramones.
But the thing is that people start adopting his sound.
Right.
So now they're doing Joe Meek without Joe Meek.
Right.
So it's like they don't fucking need him. You know what I mean? And there's, he's like left behind because he's a fucking loser. None of his shit is working out. And they're just ripping him off.
That's gotta drive him crazy, though.
Right. So he's still doing like an odd hit here and there with fucking, he has a hit called Have I the Right by the Honeycombs. Right. He starts doing, a lot of drugs. And he's also...
What kind of drugs?
Well, he might be chopping it up.
He's probably chopping it up. He's trying it all out.
But he's also, he was arrested for like a kind of George Michael bathroom hookup situation.
Ooh, cruising.
So that's left him exposed to blackmail. And then there's also been a murder in the gay community. And I'm sorry, this is so stupid. But the London police, it's known they're going to interview like every gay man.
We got a list of them.
They do, and he's in it. You know what I mean? So he's like freaked out about that and the exposure from it. Like, this is back when, homosexuality is still a crime, which is fucking insane. You know, this is a while after Oscar Wilde. You know, it's fucking it's. So he's got money problems. He's kind of losing it. He's going back into the occult stuff. He starts bringing tape recorders to the graveyard and, trying to communicate with the dead that way. And he's like, this cat sounds like a dude saying, help me, Seriously. He's doing shit like that. And he's freaking out. And on the 8th anniversary of the death of Buddy Holly, he shoots the lady that was knocking on the ceiling.
Oh,
the landlady?
Oh no!
So he was still living there.
Yeah,
he didn't drive there years later.
No. It's his house and recruiting. It's
he mic'd her up her death.
So he shoots her. Then he shoots
a fresh one.
Then he shoots himself. Right?
With the shotgun?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. 3 weeks later, he wins the case, the fucking plagiarism thing.
As a dead man.
Yeah. Jesus. And. So he misses out on all that money, right?
Yeah.
And so later on, they're like, the Music Producer Guild in 2009 created the Joe Meek Award for Innovation in Production as a homage for the remarkable producer's pioneering spirit, quote. And he was named by NME, famous British musical periodical, the greatest producer of all time.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Could like completely change the game.
Yeah.
Totally trailblazing, totally weird, totally just trying it out.
Very eccentric.
Nobody was willing to fuck with stuff. Everybody was trying to keep it pure, and he was like, why? Why not?
Yeah.
The record is going to outlive everything. The band. The record lives forever. Why wouldn't you use every tool at your disposal
right.
to fucking make it like the best thing it could possibly be?
Right.
It
involves taking risk, and people don't want to take risks.
They made when they have like a famous British person, they put like a blue plaque there, like this is William Shakespeare's house, whatever. So kind of like making fun of that, they did a black plaque at the Holloway Studios where he lived.
It was called Holloway Studios?
It was the street was named Holloway. But it's So it's like he still shot the landlady.
Yeah, they didn't.
You know what I mean?
I was hoping you weren't going to say they put a plaque there.
No. The legacy of his endless experimentation, according to MME, is writ large over most of your favorite music today.
Yeah, I mean, now everything's, reverb, de-res, it's all isolated. Like you said, every single track, every instrument or every part of an instrument's got its own track.
Right.
Auto-tune, nobody sounds like they sound live.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just also the thing where it's like, it's just a guy that didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dresses.
Well, I mean, you're a gay guy at the time.
Which, I mean...
You're outside the studio system. Studio system is not in favor at all. And then, you're an eccentric weirdo, tough to deal with.
Yeah.
But oh my God, how many bad choices could this guy possibly make?
Right.
Like that.
Kicking out Bowie and the Beatles is hilarious.
And the fact that, I mean, when you're talking about this, I was thinking about the Beatles because of how lauded they are for being the first band to experiment. The first track that ever had guitar feedback was on Revolver or something.
Yeah.
And so clearly these ideas either came to them or rubbed off onto them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, that scene is... The interesting thing about the British music scene is that it's so small. Right? And there's this thing of, like with NME, it's a weekly thing. So it's like every week, whether you're going through like the punk explosion or the post-punk time with Joy Division and the Smiths and everything else, like every week there's a new thing and it's like, what's going on? And everybody's really dialed into it. It's felt like this onslaught ever since like the Beatles and whatever, So there's always all this shit to take in and everybody's paying very close attention. Even if it's a not like well-selling record, there's like people that are like, okay, they're listening. They're avidly listening.
Right.
So then they started realizing like, let's just fucking rip off what this guy's doing. Like, this is weird. Let's fuck around with this. But this space opera album is just like, he was the first one to start like doing like sped up vocals so they sound chipmunksy and stuff like that. So like, but that is like, some of them are just like, here's a space interlude where it just sounds like you're on a planet.
Yeah.
And then some very like 60s-ish music starts playing, but the guy sounds like a chipmunk. Like, it's super out there.
That's neat.
Like, he had all of this shit recorded that they called the T-chest tapes because some guy after his death bought the whole lot for 300 pounds, right? It goes to auction. I think it's sold for like 200 grand.
Wow.
But it's got like, 16-year-old Bowie on it. And stuff like when he was playing sax in a band and shit like that, But like, it's crazy, like how there's always this thing of like this weird kind of like, Sith relationship between like the artist and the producer. How they're just so like, they're both artists and they're both insane and both is trying to convince the other one of what's gonna happen. So like it become violent all the time.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, But like these guys would have such a unique vision and stuff like that.
The producer is playing the artist as an instrument as well, right? Like, no, I need you to do it like this.
Right, but the producer always has none of the collateral. You know what I mean? You don't have any collateral until you make the record.
Yeah. You
can go see the guy at a bar and he sings his balls off and you'll be like, okay, got it. But the producer, it's like, until the record's done, why would you trust him?
Right.
So all these guys would be freaking all the time. Like, I just started watching the Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine thing on HBO, and it's like that thing too. It's like all these guys taking crazy risks.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times lying and saying like, oh, no, I'm not, I'll do it the way you want, and then like, but they would always, all of these guys that would always come up, it was always because they rebelled.
Yeah.
It's because they did things a different way. Like Steve Albini was like, he just was a nerd obsessed with audio, and then like suddenly like, the Pixies are going to him, and then like Nirvana's going to him, and Jimmy Page and stuff like that. Jimmy Page, by the way, also in the T-chest tapes from Joe Meek and stuff. Yeah, like anybody that ended up becoming anything were gravitating towards this guy. They really knew he was making like insane sounds.
Jimmy Page involved bought Aleister Crowley's house.
Yeah,
it's all coming together.
Yeah, fucking freaks, dude.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very nice.
The producers, it seems like the artists were always wanted to be influenced by the other artists more, or they're willing, they trusted them more. You know, like the Stones. There's that story how the Satanic Majesties, whatever. They created that because they were sharing. They were in a room next to the Beatles making Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
And Chuck Klosterman writes that the Rolling Stones stopped evolving when the Beatles stopped making music.
Right. Wow. Very interesting.
And so I think there's like the producer can do as much as they want, but they can only change stuff after it happens. The artists are still doing it in the moment.
Yeah, right. That's one of my favorite little anecdotes about the Beatles is when George Harrison got Clapton to come in to do all like the blues licks on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and he was like, we were fighting nonstop. He's like, the minute Clapton showed up, everybody was on their best behavior. They were like, we're not going to show this guy what a train wreck we are, basically. Like, be cool. Cool, yeah, everything's great. But yeah,
he's going deaf.
Clapton?
Yeah.
Good.
I saw that.
Fucking threw his kid out a window. Fuck him. Just kidding. I don't care.
Would you know my name?
I was driving down the street with Joe one time, and
Joe Latchett.
Yeah.
Shout out Joe Latchett.
And it was. It was You Look Wonderful Tonight was on the radio. And it was like, we were like blasting it like full volume, and I yell over to Joe right next to me. I'm like, this song's about his kid dying. And he goes, yeah, what? No, it's not.
No, it's not.
You Look Wonderful Tonight. So that's my story.
It was about a brick of cocaine.
Yeah. Chop it up.
Chop it up. What's the difference between Eric Clapton's kid and a kilo of coke?
Oh, no.
He would never drop a kilo of coke. Cocaine.
Yeah, I don't know. I love that story. That guy is such a fucking maniac.
Yeah, it takes maniacs, dude. You got to have maniacs.
I knew this was going to play into your whole thing of great men are not good people.
Great men are not good people.
I knew you'd love that for
They're
that
all
reason.
pieces of shit.
Yeah, but I mean, God, it's if I think about everything that's going on in that guy's life at the various different stages, I'm like, that's a lonely fucking road, man. You know?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, you know, he did a lot of stuff that is also present in a lot of these famous producers' things where it's like they just didn't compromise. You know?
Yeah, hard-headedness, that stubbornness can...
No, and even if it's... But then, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, you turn down the Beatles over that. But also, he didn't think that would be a thing.
Right, and he probably would have fucked it up anyways.
Yeah, but it's...
they needed their...
But they also got to that shit that you were talking about later. Like, the fucking around with stuff came later. Yeah. Back when it was in the day, everybody would characterize the Beatles sound as warm. Right? Which he was not about at all. He was like, no, I want to be like the surface of the moon.
Yeah, I mean, he
Which was also Steve Albini's thing. He's like, I don't like that warm shit. He's like, I want the guitar to sound like it's been left out in the sun forever. And, you know, just big echo, big space... Drums up front, vocals in the back. I don't care if you got an egomaniac singer. You're going to the back, pal. This is going to make the radio, like the radio sound better if it sounds like this. And a lot of that shit is shared by Joe Meek, you know, but just fucking, 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Very, very crazy story, John.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Shout out to Katie Merriam.
Yes, Katie Merriam glommed you onto that story. Thank you, Katie, very much. We got anything else? We already plugged our shit.
We did. Studio headphones. If you want to hear crisp, compressed.
Not even joking, I started listening to music on the headphones, and it does kind of bring a total different mix.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I heard stuff in songs I've been listening to for years that I haven't heard before on these headphones.
We're like, tear up my heart when I'm with, like some new NSYNC shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just like, where it's like, how it comes out in the mix or whatever, where you're like, oh, I hear somebody kind of like slightly like singing in the background, but it's like way more like present in the mix on those headphones for some reason.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, Joe Meek was one of the first ones to fuck with stereo sound, which the Ramones, Beer Piss, the Ramones did their entire first album bass out of the left speaker, guitar out of the right speaker.
Oh, man, that'd probably make you go nuts.
No, I mean, like, it sounds great.
Get nauseous.
It sounds great, but, but then one of your speakers goes down and you're like, oh, fuck.
Where's the bass?
Yeah. But yeah, nobody had done any of that shit before either, manipulating the sound to one side or the other before Joe Meek.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah.
Oh, I quickly tell one of my favorite Neil Young stories then.
Yeah.
So Neil Young, after he leaves Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, he goes and he makes his album Harvest, which is this great album.
Hell yeah.
And so he makes it in, I think he made it in this strange way. But anyway, at the end of the day, he had it all mixed down, and he had some of it separated into one speaker, some of it separated to the other speaker. So he took one of his speakers. He was at this farm out, and he put one of the speakers in the garage, and he put one of the speakers in the barn. And then him and David Crosby sat in a rowboat in a pond in the backyard.
Oh, yeah.
And listened to the album, and their only thing was, needs more barn.
Yo, man, turn up the barn. Very nice. I like that.
That's good stuff. Matt, you got anything to plug, baby?
No, I'll be in Ventura in
GG
March,
Lounge?
GG Lounge, but I'll plug that when it gets closer. I want to thank, I think I'll fix this later in post if I need to, William Adler for his book on Joe Hill, because that's really tied, he's the one who discovered the letter and tied that all together.
Very nice.
It's called I Never Died, I believe the book is called.
Hell yeah. We're going to have some more guests on the program. I think Adam Todd Brown from the Unpopular Opinion Network is
Head of the network.
Yes, the chief, as it were. He is going to... He's suggested like 5 different profiles of very interesting cats to me. Matt, you got one coming up that I'm excited about. I've got a couple.
Great.
And we're going to keep fucking around. And we love you guys. Thank you so much for the listens. We're... kind of getting more listeners all the time. People really seem to be digging it, which is like very, very joyous for me. I'm really pleased by how things are turning out. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, share it. Subscribe on iTunes and SoundCloud, and just let it. If you've got a favorite episode, share it with people.
Yeah, please. And if you're like on Reddit or something, nerding out about some shit, and you think it's pertinent, drop our link in there, please. Anywhere you think it matters, anywhere you think people like weird shit. Let them know about us. And you guys have been suggesting a ton of stuff to us. We're going to start getting to some of those too.
Yeah.
And keep those coming. Please keep suggesting weird shit to us because we absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And if I fuck up one of my like 12th hand anecdotes, feel free to tell me. Just don't be a dick about it.
Yeah. Don't be a dick about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell me. I don't care.
You can be a dick about it to me about anything.
Right.
I don't care. I like it. Okay, and beat on me.
Yeah,
whatever.
Right.
Try it out, but not to Matt. Okay, Matt doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. Matt works really hard. Aaron, you did a fine job of driving a long time tonight and then coming to do the episode.
Yeah, I drove down from San Francisco and I came here for you guys.
Really appreciate it.
I really gotta pee.
Yeah?
Oh, dude.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, try it out.
Try it out.
Let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
All right.